Hi everybody, my name is Suze and I work with women to help them find balance between their internal masculine and feminine energies so that they can have lives that feel really emotionally fulfilling, full of love and connection. So today I want to talk about an energetic concept, I guess you could say, if that makes any sense. That almost feels like an oxymoron, an energetic concept. It almost feels like that. But anyway, I want to talk about an energetic concept that I see a lot of divine feminines have a bit of a struggle with. And you're trying to step into a more trusting and a surrendered state of being, and this may trip you up a little bit. And so I would like to offer a different way of maybe looking at it or feeling into it or processing it so that you can come out on the other side feeling more empowered, and confident in embracing a more feminine state of being in whatever situation you're dealing with. And what I'm talking about is the idea of isolation and withdrawal and holding back, right? And a lot of times you say those things and they'll have a bit of a negative connotation, right? And withdrawing, it feels almost narcissistic kind of in a way, and it feels depriving in kind of a way. And so we don't want to get into this space in our relationships where we feel like we're withdrawing from the relationship. But we also know, on the other hand, that part of feminine energy is about, leaning back, right? That leaning back, soft, surrendered, letting things come to you. And also recognizing that, as I've said before, your heart space, the energy that emanates from your heart space, is the most valuable aspect of you. And this is your energetic currency, especially as a feminine. This is your energetic currency, your money. So you have to learn to choose where you're investing your money. And if there's some situation or dynamic or communication or something that's happening outside of you, and it's not something that you actually want in your life, then you understand, I can't participate in that. I can't put my heart energy, my attention, my words on this thing that's happening over here, because I'm only creating more momentum around that thing. I'm only expanding and making that negative thing more powerful. So then it becomes maybe this tug of war between understanding, okay, if I'm not going to even acknowledge these things or feed more energy into these things that I don't actually want, and I'm pulling away to calm myself and take care of my emotional needs, it may feel like I'm withdrawing, I'm withholding, and all of that clearly sounds very negative and can be very toxic in the wrong kind of situation or intention. And then we have the idea of the isolation. And isolation is something that can be very good, but then it can cross a line and go into a very toxic territory, and it can go into a very wounded territory, and it can go into a trauma response. A few years ago, I came across this article, and it was talking about something that it made me see myself in a whole different way and other people, in the sense that if you tend to isolate whenever there's conflict, or you tend to isolate when there's a problem, then you're doing that because you had to solve a lot of your problems alone as a child. And that spoke really, really deeply to me. And a lot of the clients I work with are in that same kind of a wounded aspect, where some kind of trouble or conflict or controversy or fear of conflict, potential conflict, bubbles up in a relationship. And so you tend to run away, right? You run away to calm yourself down and deal with it on your own and figure out how you feel about it and figure out if you're okay with this relationship or this dynamic. And then when you're okay, then you feel like you can engage. But the problem with that is that usually when you're doing that of quickly isolating at the hint of any problem and then kind of disappearing for a while and taking care of it and then coming back later. The problem is that most of the time when you're coming back to the partnership or to whatever the mutual collaborative situation is, there isn't an acknowledgement of the problem. There isn't an acknowledgement of whatever caused the internal or external conflict. And so now there's an elephant in the room that is not being addressed because maybe we don't know how to resolve conflict. Maybe we're afraid of conflict, which, I mean, most people are. We prefer to comfort and easy, right? We don't want to rock the boat. So you're wiping it under the rug, or now there's an elephant in the room. And this is what happens with a lot of these superficial type relationships that aren't really getting the emotional intimacy that we actually do crave in our souls and our hearts, is that you have all these elephants in the room that you haven't acknowledged. And so what happens is, like, literally the partnership, the relationship, the connection just keeps getting further and further apart with all these elephants in the room that come in the middle, because all these things were never discussed, brought to the table collaboratively, and were just kind of solved on our own until I emotionally stabilized myself, and then I come back and pretend like everything's fine. I'm laughing because it's just, I'm having a lot of thoughts with that. I think so many of us can relate to those kinds of scenarios. And if you're here and if you've been listening to me, I know that you don't want that anymore. You don't want that. You want real. You want vulnerable. You want raw. You want deep emotional intimacy and connection and transparency. I love the word transparency. You want that. And you also understand that when two people who are in a situation of conflict or whatever the situation may be, internally or externally, mutually, any form of conflict that's coming up between two people, if you learn to sit at the table together and really humbly talk it out, acknowledge what's happening, be honest about your part in it, their part in it, and all of the things, and work through it, you know that on the other end, you come closer together because you've learned to go through something really difficult together and not on your own. The bonding gets stronger. The intimacy gets deeper. And a lot of times when that happens, the physical intimacy intensifies as well, because the physical intimacy is really just a manifestation of emotional intimacy. So the deeper and the more intense a couple is, and the more honest and raw and real they are with the emotional intimacy with each other and working through conflicts together collaboratively, the physical intimacy is going to be that much better as well. You're learning the other person. You're learning how to communicate with this other person with their life experiences. You're learning your needs and their needs, and learning how to come to the table and work together through all of that, through different pasts, different life experiences, different traumas, different family backgrounds, religious backgrounds. Whatever it is, you're learning to meld those two together, integrate the two together, collaborate the two together. So we got to switch this a little bit. Now, I will say sometimes isolation is a good thing, particularly if you're someone like me, okay, where in my childhood, I had a more extreme experience in childhood with my mother passing away when I was 3, but everyone else is going to understand what I'm saying here. My experience was just more extreme, which then therefore made my internal emotional responses to difficulty as an adult a lot more extreme, because it's literally, I'm now dealing with a 3-year-old. I'm literally dealing with this 3-year-old having an emotional tantrum to any kind of disturbance in my outside reality. So wherever, your ages were of your particular really strong emotional experiences in childhood, that's kind of the developmental age that you're going to be internally feeling and tending to react from. So for me, you know, being a young child, it's going to be a lot more extreme, emotional, whoa, volcanoes internally that I've had to learn to deal with. So if you're anything like me, in my process of learning emotional stability, emotional security, emotional self-control, and empowerment instead of emotions totally destroying me, right? In the beginning, I did have to pull away and isolate so that I wouldn't be angry and yelling at the other person that I'm in relationship with, because that would be my first reaction. Is I get scared, I don't like conflict, I'm having all these really big crazy emotions that I don't know what to do with, and so it all builds up and explodes out in anger. I did a video, I can't remember the name of it, I'm just remembering now. I did a video about women and anger and what's actually, it was something about what's actually happening when a woman gets angry. I think the title was something like that. Really trying to turn it on its head, because the idea of angry women, there's so much stigma and shame on a woman who's exhibiting anger, instead of understanding what's actually happening internally and learning to offer compassion and healing for that anger in women. So if you're having an experience, or you tend to have experiences like I used to, where emotional things would instantly make me so afraid and so overwhelmed with fear of horrible things happening to me, that anger is the thing that comes out. In the beginning, you may have to isolate. You may have to isolate so that you don't let that anger burn the person you're with. And you learn to calm yourself down so that you can come back to the partnership, sit at the proverbial table, and calmly and respectfully talk these things out. So that's when isolation is something that is really, really helpful and positive and constructive. But just because you calmed yourself down and you're okay doesn't mean you don't talk about whatever the thing was with the person. You still have to do that. And as time goes on, and as you learn to see your emotional reactions and the emotional responses inside of you, you're able to shorten the time that you need in isolation. And you're able to really control yourself in the anger and all of that in the moment a lot more constructively, and come and work things out a lot faster. So I had more I was going to say today, but I really feel that I want to leave this video at this point today. If you're new here and you found value here, please do subscribe to support my channel and to help me get my message out to more people who are working through this emotional healing and really desiring deep emotional fulfillment in your life with yourself, learning how to work with your emotional responses in a more empowering way, which is healing and self-love, instead of just reacting and then shaming yourself and beating yourself up and feeling horrible about these cycles that you get stuck in with your emotions. I hope this video helped. I'm sending so much love. Thank you, all of you who've been here with me today. Have a beautiful rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.